The house was quiet that evening, but inside her heart, noise never stopped. Emma sat near the window, watching the streetlights glow in the distance. It had been 3 months since the vacation that changed everything, the one she once called the dream trip. Oh, every time she thought of it, her chest tightened and her throat felt dry. She used to believe that money could fix everything, that comfort and luxury could heal the wounds life had given her. But she was wrong. Everything had started to fall apart because of one lie, a lie told by her own son, Ethan, and that lie not only broke her trust, but also forced her to face the truth about her life, her marriage, and herself. Emma was a 45-year-old woman living in Chicago. She worked hard for everything she had. After her divorce, she had built a small but beautiful life for herself and her 19-year-old son. Ethan was her pride, her only family, and her reason to smile. She had saved money for years, every bonus, every extra dollar, just to give Ethan something special. A dream vacation before he went off to college. It was supposed to be their time together, away from worries, away from stress. A mother and son trip to Europe, Paris, Rome, and Greece. She wanted it to be perfect. Everything was planned months before. The flight tickets were booked, hotels reserved, and a tour company paid. It cost her almost $70,000, all her savings. But she didn't care. Money will come again, she told herself. Memories won't. She was excited. Ethan seemed excited too. But there was something strange about him in the days before the trip. He often looked lost, checking his phone too much, avoiding her eyes. Emma noticed it, but she thought it was normal teenage behavior. After all, he was about to start college life. Maybe he was just nervous. She didn't ask questions. She trusted him. The day before their flight, they packed everything neatly. Emma couldn't stop smiling as she placed their passports in her bag. Ethan came into the room, smiled faintly, and said, "Mom, I'll handle the money part, okay? I already converted it into euros. You don't have to stress about anything." Emma looked at him proudly. My son is growing up, she thought. She didn't know that this moment, this small exchange, was the start of a story that would tear her life apart. Their first stop was Paris. The flight was long but peaceful. Emma felt young again, sitting beside her son, watching clouds through the airplane window. She remembered holding his little hand years ago when he was scared of flying. Now he was calm, confident, even distant. They arrived at a lovely hotel near the Eiffel Tower. The air was fresh, and the lights of Paris felt like dreams coming true. Emma took pictures, laughed, and bought souvenirs. But Ethan was quiet. He spent most of his time on his phone, going out for walks that lasted too long. Every time she asked, "Where did you go?" he said, "Just exploring, Mom." On their third day, something strange happened. Emma woke up early to get breakfast. She checked her purse, the travel wallet that contained some of their cash and documents. It was missing. Her heart started racing. She searched everywhere, in drawers, in bags, even under the bed. Nothing. She tried to stay calm. Maybe Ethan moved it. When he came back from his morning walk, she asked him about it. His face turned pale. He said, "Don't worry, Mom. I put it in the hotel safe." But when she checked, the safe was empty. Her hands trembled. "Ethan, what's going on?" she whispered. He didn't answer right away. His voice shook as he said, "Mom, it's fine. I'll fix it." That night, Emma couldn't sleep. She stared at the ceiling, thinking about Ethan's strange behavior. I still remember that night. The room was dark, the streetlights flickering through the window. She heard him whispering on the phone, his voice low and scared. "I promise I'll send it soon," he said. "Just give me 2 more days." Her stomach turned cold. She got up quietly, walked toward the balcony, and listened again. Ethan was standing near the sliding door, his back turned. "Please, I swear I'll get the money," he said again. Emma froze. Money? What money? Her heart pounded as she stepped forward. Ethan turned, startled. His phone fell to the floor. Their eyes met, hers filled with confusion, his filled with fear. "Who are you talking to?" she asked, her voice shaking. Ethan hesitated, then said, "It's nothing, Mom. Just a friend." But his voice cracked. Emma knew he was lying. The next morning, he tried to act normal, but his hands shook while eating breakfast. Emma couldn't stop thinking about it. Something was terribly wrong. Later that day, when Ethan went out again, she checked his phone. It was locked. She felt guilty, but she had no choice. For hours, she tried to figure out the password, birthdays, pet names, anything. Finally, it opened. What she saw made her knees weak. There were messages, long threads of chats with someone named Darren. The messages talked about money, betting, and fixing a problem before someone found out. One message read, "You took $10,000 already. Where's the rest?" Emma's breath caught in her throat. Her hands shook so badly, she almost dropped the phone. When Ethan returned, she was sitting on the bed, holding his phone. He froze when he saw her face. "What is this?" she asked softly, tears filling her eyes. "Tell me the truth, Ethan." He opened his mouth but couldn't speak. Finally, he whispered, "Mom, I'm sorry." And then everything came out. He confessed that he had been gambling online for months. It started as fun small bets with friends, but then he lost control. He took her money from the vacation account to pay off the people he owed. "They said they'd hurt me if I didn't pay," he cried. "I didn't know what to do." Emma felt her world crumble. Every sound in the room faded away. Only her heartbeat echoed in her ears. She couldn't believe it. Her own son, the boy she trusted with everything, had lied to her, stolen from her, and put both their lives in danger. The $70,000 she had worked for, all gone. The dream vacation turned into a nightmare. She didn't even know what to say. She just sat there, staring at him, as tears rolled down her cheeks. For the next few days, she moved like a shadow. They stayed in Paris, but nothing felt beautiful anymore. Every laugh she heard from the streets felt like a mockery. She wanted to scream, but she couldn't. She loved her son, but she couldn't look at him without pain. He tried to help, tried to make it right, but it was too late. One night he told her that the people he owed money to knew where they were. That was when real fear began. Emma realized this was not just about money. It was about safety now. Someone might come for them. She decided they had to leave Paris immediately. But as they packed, Ethan received a message. He froze. The color drained from his face. Emma asked, "What is it?" He didn't answer. He just said, "Mom, I need to fix this before we go. Please trust me one last time." His voice was desperate. She wanted to stop him, but before she could, he ran out of the hotel room into the night. Hours passed. Emma sat by the window, watching the empty street. It was raining, and the sound of water hitting the glass felt endless. She called his phone again and again. No answer. Midnight came. The lights outside blurred through her tears. She whispered to herself, "Please come back, Ethan, please." And then there was a knock on the door. Emma stood up slowly, her heart pounding in her chest. She walked toward the door, her hands trembling, afraid to open it. The knock came again, louder this time. She held her breath, reached for the handle, and opened it. What she saw made her gasp and step back. Emma's heart raced as she stood frozen in front of the door. The hallway was dim, and the sound of rain echoed outside the hotel. She slowly pulled the door open, her hands trembling, her throat dry. For a second, she hoped it was Ethan. She hoped her son had come back, wet from the rain, but safe. But when the door opened, it wasn't Ethan standing there. It was a man, tall, broad shoulders, dark jacket, his face half hidden under a hood. Double quotes, Mrs. Parker. The man asked, his voice deep and calm, almost to calm. Emma's stomach twisted. "Who are you?" she whispered. The man stepped forward slightly, showing her something. A small black wallet, like an ID holder. "I'm a friend of Ethan's," he said. "He asked me to bring you this." He held out an envelope. Emma looked down. The envelope was soaked from the rain, the corners torn. She hesitated, but took it. Her fingers brushed his hand for a moment. It was cold, like stone. "Where's my son?" she asked. The man didn't answer right away. He looked at her with strange eyes, unreadable, empty. "He's trying to fix a mistake," he said finally. "He told me to tell you not to worry." Emma's knees felt weak. "What mistake? What is going on?" The man didn't reply. He simply nodded toward the envelope. "You'll understand when you read it." Then he turned and walked away down the corridor. His boots echoed on the marble floor, slow and heavy. Emma stood there, unable to move, the envelope trembling in her hands. When she finally closed the door, she locked it twice. The rain outside grew louder, hitting the glass like tiny stones. She sat on the edge of the bed and opened the envelope. Inside was a folded piece of paper and a hotel key card, not from her hotel, but another one. Her breath caught as she unfolded the paper. Ethan's handwriting. "Mom, please don't be scared. I'm trying to fix what I did. Don't leave the hotel. I'll come for you tomorrow morning. If I don't, go to the Grand Lumiere Hotel, room 314. Don't trust anyone. Please." Emma read it again and again, her mind spinning. Don't trust anyone. What did that mean? Who was the man? Why was Ethan meeting dangerous people? Fear crawled up her spine. She felt trapped in a city she didn't know, with no one to call for help. And her son missing in the night. She didn't sleep. All night she sat in that chair near the window, staring at the empty street below. Every car light made her jump. Every sound made her heart pound. She tried to call Ethan again. No answer. His phone went straight to voicemail. She thought of calling the police, but what could she say? "My son stole my money, ran away, and now strange men are knocking on my door." It sounded insane. By dawn, she looked pale and tired, her eyes red from tears. She packed their things slowly, just in case. The city outside woke up, but inside her room, everything felt frozen. At 10 a.m., she decided to go to the Grand Lumiere Hotel. She couldn't wait any longer. The streets of Paris looked beautiful. But Emma saw none of it. The Eiffel Tower shimmered in the distance. Tourists laughed nearby, but her world was gray. She held her bag tight, her fingers gripping it as if it held her life. After a short taxi ride, she arrived at the hotel Ethan mentioned. It was more luxurious than the one they stayed in. Tall glass doors, golden lights, and a soft piano playing in the lobby. She walked up to the reception and said in a shaky voice, "Room 314, please." The receptionist looked at her strangely. "Are you a guest, madam?" Emma hesitated. "My son is staying there." The receptionist checked something on the screen, then said, "There is no one by that name in our system." Her heart sank. "Please," she said quietly, "can you just check if someone is inside?" The woman hesitated, then picked up the phone. After a few moments, she said, "No answer, madame. Would you like me to call security?" Emma nodded weakly. A few minutes later, a tall security guard arrived. He accompanied her to the elevator. Her hands shook the entire ride. When they reached the third floor, everything was quiet, too quiet. The guard knocked on the door of room 314. No answer. Then he used his master key and opened it slowly. The room was dark, curtains closed. And there was a strange smell, faint, like smoke and perfume. The bed was messy, and on the table there were papers scattered everywhere. Emma stepped inside carefully. Her eyes fell on something lying on the floor, a phone. It was Ethan's. Her knees almost gave out. She picked it up with trembling hands. It was cracked, and the screen was black. "Ethan," she whispered, her voice breaking. But there was no one, only silence. The security guard looked around the room. "No one's here, madame," he said softly. Emma sat on the bed, tears running down her face. She looked at the papers on the table, receipts, printed emails, and one small piece of paper with numbers and names. She couldn't understand much, but one name kept appearing. Darren. The same name she saw in the messages before. Whoever Darren was, he was the reason her son was in danger. Suddenly, her phone buzzed. Unknown number. Her hands shook as she answered. "Hello." A man's voice came through. "Mrs. Parker." "Yes," she whispered. "You should stop looking for Ethan," the voice said coldly. "If you want him safe, do exactly what I tell you." "You have something we need?" Emma's breath caught. "Who are you? Where is my son?" The man chuckled darkly. "Don't worry about him. Worry about yourself. Check your bag." Then the line went dead. Her heart pounded as she unzipped her bag. Inside, between her clothes, she found something small wrapped in brown paper. She didn't remember putting it there. Her hands shook as she unwrapped it. Inside was a small flash drive, silver, simple, but heavy with meaning. She had no idea how it got there. The security guard looked confused. "Is everything okay, madam?" She forced a weak smile. "Yes, thank you. I'll be fine." She left the hotel quickly, afraid to draw attention. Every step she took felt heavy, like the ground might open beneath her. She didn't know what the flash drive was, or why the man said she had something they need. But she knew one thing: Ethan was in serious danger. And now she was back in her own hotel. She plugged the flash drive into her laptop. There were only 2 files. One was a folder named Lumiere. Inside were photos of people she didn't know, men in suits, exchanging envelopes, sitting in expensive restaurants. The other file was a video. When she opened it, her blood ran cold. It showed Ethan sitting in a dim room talking to someone behind the camera. His voice was scared. "Please, I didn't mean to. I'll pay you back. Just don't tell my mom. She'll never forgive me." Emma covered her mouth, her tears falling fast. The video ended suddenly, cutting off with a loud noise. She leaned back in her chair, shaking. What was happening? How had her son gotten into this? And why did these men want her involved? She realized that losing $70,000 wasn't just about money. It was about something much darker. Hours later, her hotel phone rang again. She didn't want to answer, but she did. The same voice said, "Good, you found it. Now, if you ever want to see Ethan again, bring that drive to Gare du Nord tomorrow night. Come alone." The line went silent. Emma dropped the phone. Her heart was beating so fast it hurt. She wanted to scream. She wanted to call the police. But what if they hurt Ethan? What if this was all her fault? She looked out the window. The city lights of Paris glittered like broken stars. Somewhere out there, her son was trapped because of his lie. She sat there until morning, thinking of every memory. His first steps, his first day at school, how he used to hold her hand. She couldn't lose him now. She decided she would go. She didn't care what danger waited at the train station. She just wanted to bring him home. The next night came faster than she expected. She wore a dark coat, pulled the hood over her head, and hid the flash drive inside her jacket. The streets were wet from rain again. She took a taxi to Gare du Nord. The huge station was filled with people, travelers, families, strangers rushing by. She looked around, searching for anyone familiar, any sign of Ethan. Then she saw him. At the far end of the platform near the old clock, Ethan stood pale, thin, and scared. Relief flooded her heart. She called out, "Ethan," and ran toward him. He looked up, eyes wide, tears already forming. "Mom." But before she could reach him, someone grabbed her arm. A man in a black coat whispered close to her ear, "Not another step. Mrs. Parker, hand over the drive." Her whole body froze. The sound of trains echoed through the massive hall of Gare du Nord. The cold air smelled of metal, arain, and coffee from the nearby stalls. Emma's heart pounded as she stood frozen, her arm gripped tightly by the man in the black coat. His fingers pressed hard into her skin. She tried to pull away, but he was strong. His voice was low, almost like a growl. "Don't make a scene, Mrs. Parker. You wouldn't want to scare your son." Her eyes darted past him toward Ethan. He was standing near a pillar, his face pale and frightened. He looked thinner than before, his shoulders hunched, his clothes messy. When their eyes met, he tried to move toward her, but another man, taller, with a scar on his cheek, stepped out of the crowd and blocked him. Ethan's lips moved silently. He whispered something, maybe her name. Emma wanted to scream. She wanted to run to him and hold him. But the man in black leaned closer and said, "The flash drive." She shook her head weakly. "Let me talk to my son first," she pleaded. "Please, I'll give you what you want. Just let me see him." The man's eyes were cold, like ice. "You're not in charge here," he said. "You hand over the drive and you both walk away. Or you don't and you lose everything." Her hands trembled. She reached into her jacket pocket slowly, feeling the small flash drive hidden inside. But her mind raced. If I give it to him, will they let us go? Or will they hurt Ethan anyway? She didn't trust them. Not one bit. The man glanced at his watch impatiently. Now, he hissed. She looked at Ethan again. He was trying to speak to the man with the scar, but the man shoved him back. Ethan stumbled, almost falling. That was enough. Something inside Emma broke. She had been quiet for too long. She took a deep breath and said loudly, "You want it? Fine. But first, you let him go." Her voice echoed in the station, turning heads. People nearby looked up, surprised. The man in black cursed under his breath and tightened his grip. "Quiet," he snapped. But it was too late. Security guards at the station had noticed the tension. Two of them began walking toward her. The man in black glared at her, furious. "You shouldn't have done that," he said through clenched teeth. He let go of her arm and turned to leave, but not before whispering, "You'll regret this." Emma turned to run toward Ethan, but in that same moment, the man with the scar grabbed Ethan by the shoulder and pulled him into the crowd. "Ethan!" She screamed. Her voice was drowned by the noise of trains and shouting people. She pushed through the crowd, her heart hammering. For a few seconds, she saw the back of Ethan's jacket, then he was gone. The guards reached her. "Madam, what's happening?" One asked. She was shaking, her breath short. "My son. They took my son. Please help me." But when they searched, there was no sign of Ethan or the two men. It was like they had vanished into the city. Emma sat on the cold bench in the station for almost an hour after that, crying quietly. People passed by, pretending not to look. She felt helpless, like the world was closing in on her. She had no idea where to go, who to trust. The police came eventually, but when she tried to explain everything, the gambling, the threats, the flash drive, they looked doubtful. One officer took notes and said, "Madam, this sounds serious, but we need proof. Do you know the men's names?" "Darren," she said weakly. "One of them is named Darren." The officer nodded slowly. "We'll check, but Paris is big. It may take time." Time. That was the one thing she didn't have. That night, she returned to her hotel again, alone. The rain hadn't stopped and thunder rolled through the sky. Her room felt darker than before, the silence heavier. She took out the flash drive and looked at it. Maybe this small thing was the reason her son was in danger. Maybe it was the key to everything. But she was scared to open it again. What if it contained something worse than she imagined? Still, she couldn't sit there doing nothing. She connected it to her laptop. There was a new file, one that hadn't been there before. The name of the file made her heart skip. For Mom. Her hands shook as she clicked it open. It was another video. The screen was dark for a few seconds, then she saw Ethan's face. He looked tired, his eyes red, his voice soft. "Mom, if you're watching this, it means I didn't make it back to the hotel. I'm sorry for everything. I lied, I stole, and I dragged you into this mess. I thought I could handle it, but I was wrong. The people I owe, they're dangerous. They're not just gamblers, Mom. They're into things I can't even explain. That flash drive, it has proof of what they do. I copied it from Darren's laptop before he found out. That's why they want it back. Please don't give it to them. Take it to the police. And Mom, whatever happens to me, don't stop living. Losing the money doesn't matter. You still have your life. I love you." Emma's body went numb. Her tears blurred the screen. She whispered his name again and again. For the first time, she understood the $70,000 wasn't just money lost. It was part of something much bigger, much darker. Ethan had tried to do the right thing in the end, but now he was trapped. She saved the video and unplugged the drive. Then, wiping her tears, she made a decision. She would go to the police again, but this time she would bring them the evidence. She didn't care how dangerous it was. It was past midnight when she left the hotel, clutching her bag close. The streets were almost empty, only the sound of rain and distant traffic. She turned the corner toward the police station and stopped. A black car was parked across the street. Its headlights were off, but she could feel eyes watching her from inside. Her heart started to race. She took a few steps back, pretending to look the other way. But then the car door opened. The same man in the black coat stepped out. He smiled. That cold, lifeless smile that made her blood freeze. "Going somewhere, Mrs. Parker?" She turned and ran. Her shoes splashed through puddles, her breath coming fast. She didn't look back. She darted down a side street through narrow alleys, her mind screaming, "Run, run, run." She could hear footsteps behind her. Heavy, fast, her heart pounded in her ears. She saw a cafe ahead with lights still on. She rushed inside, slamming the door behind her. The waitress looked startled. "Madame, are you okay?" Emma gasped. "Please, call the police." Before the waitress could respond, the door swung open again. The man in black stepped in calmly, like he had all the time in the world. "That won't be necessary," he said. Emma backed away, clutching her bag. "Stay away from me." The man looked at her with amusement. "You have something that doesn't belong to you. Give it back and maybe I'll tell you where your son is." Her hands trembled. "If I give it to you, will you let him go?" He smiled slightly. "You have my word." But she saw it in his eyes there was no truth there. Only lies. She slowly reached into her bag, pretending to take out the flash drive. Instead, she pulled out her phone and pressed the emergency call button she had already typed in. The phone buzzed quietly as it connected. She kept talking loudly to distract him. "You promise he's safe?" she said. The man nodded, stepping closer. "Yes, hand it over." Just then, the sound of sirens echoed in the distance. The man's expression changed. He realized what she'd done. "You called them," he hissed. Emma turned and ran again, out the back door of the cafe into the rain. The alley was dark and slippery. She could hear him shouting behind her, footsteps splashing through the water. The sirens grew louder. Blue lights flashed at the end of the street. She ran toward them, screaming, "Help! Help!" The police arrived just in time. The man tried to escape, but they caught him near the corner. Emma collapsed on the wet pavement, crying, shaking, unable to believe it was over, at least for now, at the station. She showed them the flash drive, the video, and told them everything from the beginning. The officers took her statements seriously this time. One detective, a kind woman named Isabel, promised they would find Ethan. "You were brave," she said gently. "We'll do everything we can." That night, Emma stayed in a safe place arranged by the police. She sat near the window, watching the city lights flicker in the rain. She was exhausted, but her heart refused to rest. Ethan was still out there somewhere, and she didn't know if he was alive. She clutched his last message. "Don't give it to them. Take it to the police." She had done that. Now all she could do was wait and hope. But just before dawn, her phone buzzed with a new message. No name, no number. Just one sentence. "You shouldn't have involved the police. Now it's too late." Emma stared at the screen, her blood turning cold. Emma stared at her phone, frozen. The message glowed on the screen like a knife cutting through the darkness. "You shouldn't have involved the police. Now it's too late." Her fingers trembled. The words repeated in her head again and again until her mind went numb. It was early morning. The sky outside was still gray, the rain soft against the window. The city of Paris was just beginning to wake up. But inside her small hotel room, everything felt heavy and silent. Her breath came in short gasps. She read the message one more time, hoping it wasn't real, that maybe it was some mistake, a prank, something else. But deep down, she knew. They were watching her. They knew exactly where she was. And maybe they already had Ethan. Her hands shook as she picked up her phone and showed the message to Detective Isabel, who had come earlier that morning to check on her. Isabel's eyes narrowed. "We expected something like this," she said calmly. "They're trying to scare you. They want you to panic." Emma's voice was weak. "What if they're right? What if it's too late for my son?" Isabel placed a hand on her shoulder. "No, we have leads. We found the man we arrested last night. He's refusing to talk, but we'll find the others. Don't lose hope, Mrs. Parker." Hope, the word felt fragile, almost meaningless. Still, she nodded, forcing herself to believe. Hours passed. Emma stayed at the police safe house, a small apartment with plain walls and one narrow window overlooking the street. She couldn't eat. She couldn't sleep. Every sound, a door closing, footsteps in the hall, made her flinch. She replayed Ethan's last video in her mind again and again. Don't give it to them. Take it to the police. She had done that. But what if it had cost him his life? By afternoon, Detective Isabel returned with a laptop. "Mrs. Parker, I think we've found something," she said. "The flash drive you gave us had more than photos and videos. It also had encrypted files, documents about bank accounts, names, and coded messages. Whoever these men are, they're part of something bigger, possibly money laundering or fraud across several countries." Emma's eyes widened. And Ethan? He got involved in that. Isabel nodded sadly. "We think he didn't know at first. He was probably used by them. They found out he took this information, and that's why they're after him. And you." Emma felt her stomach twist. The guilt crushed her. If only she had stopped him earlier. If only she had seen the signs before their trip. But now it was too late for if only. She looked out the window, whispering, "Please be safe. Ethan, please." That night, the rain returned, heavier than before. Thunder rumbled in the distance. The safe house felt smaller now, the air thick with fear. Emma tried to rest on the couch, her phone clutched tightly in her hand. Around midnight, it buzzed again. Unknown number. No text this time, a video link. Her heart skipped a beat. She hesitated, then opened it. The screen went dark for a few seconds, then lit up. She gasped. It was Ethan. He was sitting on a chair in what looked like a basement concrete walls. Dim light flickering above. His hands were tied. His face was bruised, his lips dry. He looked scared, tired, defeated. "Mom," he said weakly, "please don't try to find me. They said if you stop talking to the police, they'll let me go. Please, Mom, just listen to them, please." Then the screen went black. Emma dropped the phone, her hands shaking uncontrollably. "No, no, no," she cried. Isabel and another officer rushed into the room. She pointed at the phone, her voice breaking. "They have him. They have my son." Isabel picked up the phone and watched the video. Her jaw tightened. "They're bluffing," she said. "They sent this to make you panic, to make you cooperate. But it might help us trace their location." She handed it to her team. "Find out where that was recorded." Emma could barely hear them. Her mind was spinning. The image of Ethan, the fear in his eyes, burned into her memory. She could almost hear his voice begging her to stop. But how could she? How could a mother stop trying to save her child? She looked at Isabel. "You have to let me help. I can talk to them. I can tell them what they want to hear. Maybe they'll let him go." Isabel shook her head firmly. "No, they'll use you, Mrs. Parker. We'll handle this. You stay safe." But Emma couldn't just sit there. Every second felt like a lifetime. She waited until Isabel left the room to make a phone call, then quietly took her jacket and slipped out. She knew it was dangerous. She knew it was foolish. But she couldn't stay locked in that room while her son suffered. The streets were empty again. The sound of rain echoing through narrow alleys. She walked quickly, clutching her phone. She opened the video again and paused it, looking at the small details, a broken pipe behind Ethan, a faint sound of dripping water, and in the corner of the frame, something small, a red sign with white letters. She zoomed in. It was blurry, but she could just make out the words, "Riv Sud Storage." Her heart pounded. She didn't know Paris well, but she remembered seeing signs like that near the river, near the southern industrial area. She hailed a taxi, gave the driver what she thought was the right direction, and prayed she wasn't making a terrible mistake. The drive was long and quiet. Streetlights reflected off wet roads. The driver glanced at her a few times, but didn't speak. Finally, they stopped near an old building by the Seine River, a warehouse with faded letters. "Rive Sud Storage." The place looked abandoned. "Are you sure this is it, madame?" The driver asked nervously. Yes, Emma said softly, paying him quickly. Please go. He hesitated, then drove off, leaving her alone in the rain. The building loomed in front of her, dark and silent. She took a deep breath and walked toward the door. It was slightly open. Her heart hammered. She pushed it slowly, the old hinges creaking. Inside, it smelled of dust, metal, and oil. Faint light flickered from somewhere deeper inside. She took a step forward, then another. The sound of dripping water echoed around her. Ethan, she whispered. Her voice bounced off the walls. Ethan, it's Mom. No answer. She moved carefully, her shoes crunching on gravel. Then she heard a sound. A muffled cry. She froze, listening. It came from somewhere to her left, behind a metal door. She ran to it and pressed her ear against it. Mom. Her heart stopped. It was his voice. Ethan. She whispered loudly, I'm here. Hold on. She looked around for something to open the door, but before she could find anything, a light switched on behind her. Bright, white, blinding. Mrs. Parker, a voice said from the shadows, You just couldn't follow instructions, could you? She turned slowly. The man with the scar was standing there, a gun in his hand, his smile cruel. Behind him, another man, Darren, the one Ethan had mentioned. His eyes were cold and sharp. Darren stepped forward. You brought quite a lot of trouble, you know that. The police, the files, everything. You should have just given us the drive. Kima's voice shook. You already have it. The police have everything. Let my son go. Darren laughed softly. Oh, we know. And that's why we can't let you go. You've seen too much. He nodded to the man with the scar, who stepped closer. Emma backed away, her mind racing. She glanced at the door where Ethan's voice came from. Please, she whispered. He's just a boy. Darren tilted his head slightly. Boys grow up. Sometimes they make mistakes they can't undo. He raised his hand, and that's when the sound of sirens cut through the air. Blue and red lights flashed through the broken windows. Police? A voice shouted from outside. Darren's face twisted in anger. You led them here. He yelled. Emma didn't even understand how they found her. Maybe Isabel had tracked her phone. She didn't care. She ran toward the metal door, shouting, Ethan, as Darren and his men scattered. Bullets shattered glass. Officers stormed the building, yelling in French and English. The chaos was deafening shouts, gunfire. Footsteps. Emma found a metal bar and struck the lock again and again until it broke. The door swung open, and there he was. Ethan, tied to a chair, weak but alive. She rushed to him, crying, It's okay, baby. It's okay. I'm here. He could barely speak. Mom. She untied him quickly, tears falling onto his hands. We're going home, she whispered. But before they could move, a loud noise echoed through the warehouse, a crash followed by a scream. The officers shouted something Emma couldn't understand. She turned and saw Darren running toward the back exit, a gun in his hand. He looked back once, his eyes meeting hers, and said, This isn't over. Then he disappeared into the darkness. The rain outside had turned into a storm by the time the police cleared the warehouse. Flashing blue and red lights reflected on the wet ground. And officers moved quickly, shouting orders, carrying evidence bags, and searching every corner of the building. Emma sat on the back of an ambulance, a blanket around her shoulders. Her hands still trembled. Ethan sat beside her, pale and exhausted, his face bruised but his eyes alive again. For the first time in what felt like forever, she touched his face gently. You're safe now, she whispered. He nodded weakly. I thought I'd never see you again, Mom. Emma's eyes filled with tears. You will always see me. I'll never stop looking for you. Never! Detective Isabel walked up to them, soaked from the rain, her hair sticking to her face, but her voice steady. Mrs. Parker, Ethan, you're both lucky to be alive. We've arrested 2 of the men, but Darren escaped. We'll find him soon. Emma looked at her sharply. You have to. He said it wasn't over. Isabel sighed. I know, and that's why we can't take any chances. You'll both come with us to a secure location until the case is closed." Ethan lowered his head. "It's my fault," he said softly. "All of this happened because of me." Emma turned to him quickly. "No, Ethan, it's not your fault. You were trying to do the right thing." But he shook his head. "You don't understand. I wasn't honest with you. I didn't tell you everything." Her heart tightened. "What do you mean?" He looked down, tears mixing with the rain on his face. "Those men. They weren't just strangers. Darren used to work for Dad's company. Before he left us, Dad was part of a business deal that went bad. He lost a lot of money, $70,000. Darren said he could help me get it back for you. I thought I was fixing things for our family. I thought I was helping." Emma stared at him, stunned. "Ethan, you did this for me?" He nodded slowly. "I didn't know it was illegal, Mom. I thought it was just an investment. But when I realized it wasn't real, that it was something dangerous, I tried to stop. That's when Darren and his men came after me. They said I knew too much." Emma felt her stomach twist. Everything made sense now. The secret calls, the missing money, the lie about the vacation. "Oh, Ethan," she whispered, her heart breaking. "You were just trying to help me, and it almost cost us everything." Ethan looked away, ashamed. "I wanted to give you the life you deserved. You've worked so hard since Dad left. I just wanted to make things right." She hugged him tightly, her tears falling freely. "You don't need to fix my life, baby. You are my life." The moment was quiet, broken only by the sound of rain on the ambulance roof. For a brief second, Emma allowed herself to breathe again. But deep down, she knew this wasn't over. Darren was still out there, and he wouldn't stop until he got what he wanted. The next morning, they were moved to a small countryside villa under police protection. It was peaceful, surrounded by tall trees and fog that hung low in the fields. For the first time in weeks, Emma felt a strange calmness. She made tea, sat near the window, and watched the mist roll over the hills. Ethan was asleep upstairs, finally resting after days of fear. But Emma couldn't rest. Her mind kept going back to Darren, to his cold eyes, his final words. "This isn't over." She walked to the small table where her phone was charging. There were no new messages. She picked it up, scrolling through old photos of her and Ethan birthdays, trips, happy memories before everything fell apart. For a moment, she smiled. Then the phone buzzed. One new message. Her breath caught. The number was blocked. She opened it slowly. There was no text, just a photo, the outside of the villa. Her villa. The picture had been taken moments ago. Emma dropped the phone. Her heart pounded in her chest. She ran to the window and looked out, scanning the trees. The fog made everything blurry. She couldn't see anyone, but she could feel it. Someone was watching Isabel. She shouted. The detective ran in from the kitchen, alarmed. "What happened?" Emma pointed to the phone. "He's here. Darren, he sent this picture just now." Isabel grabbed the phone, her face hardening. "We'll increase security. Stay inside, both of you." She barked orders into her radio. And 2 officers rushed outside to search the area. Emma closed the curtains and sat down, shaking. The fear returned, stronger than ever. She thought she was safe, but Darren had found them again. Hours passed. The officers searched every inch of the property but found nothing. No footprints, no tire tracks, nothing. Isabel tried to reassure her, but Emma knew. Darren was too clever to leave evidence. That night, she couldn't sleep. Every creak of the old house, every gust of wind against the window made her jump. Around midnight, she got up quietly and went downstairs for some water. The house was dark, lit only by the pale light from outside. She poured a glass, took a sip, and then she saw it. A red light flickering near the window, small, blinking. She walked closer, heart pounding. It was a camera, a tiny black device stuck under the window frame. "Oh my God," she whispered. She ran upstairs, waking Isabel and the others. Within minutes, the room was full of movement. Flashlights, radios, officers searching. They found another camera hidden near the back door and another inside the living room vent. 3 in total. Isabel's voice was tense. He's been watching you for days, maybe weeks. Emma felt sick. He knows everything. He's playing with us. Ethan came out of his room, frightened. Mom, what's happening? She pulled him close, whispering, It's okay, baby. It's okay. But her voice was shaking, and he could tell she was lying. The officers worked through the night, removing the cameras, sealing the house. By morning, they had moved Emma and Ethan again, this time to a police facility in the city. Isabel stayed with them the whole time. I promise we'll catch him, she said firmly. He's getting desperate. Emma looked at her. He won't stop until he gets revenge. Isabel nodded. And we won't stop until he's behind bars. Days passed in the police facility. Emma tried to stay strong for Ethan, but the fear never left her. Every time the door opened, she flinched. Every time the phone rang, her heart jumped. One evening, Isabel came in with news. We found Darren's car, she said. Abandoned near the border? But there's more. There was a laptop inside. And we think it belongs to him. Okay. Emma leaned forward. Did you find anything? Not yet. It's encrypted. But we'll get in. Isabel paused. If we can access those files, we might finally know who he was working for and why he wanted that $70,000 so badly. Emma nodded slowly. It wasn't just about the money, was it? Isabel looked at her quietly. No, I think it's about something much bigger. Later that night, as Emma tried to sleep, she thought about everything, the lie, the money, the fear, and how it had all started with a vacation, a simple trip that turned into a nightmare. But maybe it had also saved her life. Before this, she had been stuck in a loop, working long hours, chasing bills, trying to fix a broken past. Losing that money, facing the truth, it forced her to see what really mattered: her son, her peace, her freedom. She looked at Ethan sleeping beside her. For the first time in weeks, she smiled softly. Maybe they could finally start over. But just as she closed her eyes, her phone buzzed again. No number. No name, just 3 words. You think you're safe? Her eyes shot open. The fear returned like a wave. She clutched the phone, staring at the glowing screen in the darkness, and outside. Somewhere in the distance, a car engine started. The sound of the car engine outside made Emma freeze. Her phone was still glowing in her hand, the message burning in her mind. You think you're safe? For a moment, she couldn't move. Her breath caught in her throat, and her heart pounded so hard she could hear it in her ears. She turned her head slowly toward the window. The night outside was black and silent, except for the faint sound of rain tapping against the glass. Isabel, she whispered, her voice barely audible. The detective, who was asleep in the next room, woke instantly at the tone in Emma's voice. Within seconds, she entered the room, her hand already on her gun. What is it? Emma handed her the phone. Isabel read the message, her jaw tightening. When did this come? Just now. And I heard a car. Isabel went to the window, peeking through the blinds. The police compound yard below was quiet. 2 guards were standing near the gate, their flashlights moving slowly. Nothing looked out of place. And yet Emma could feel something was wrong. Isabel called one of the officers on her radio. Check the perimeter. We may have someone watching the building. Within minutes, 2 patrol cars circled the area. But they found nothing. No vehicle, no movement. The car sound had disappeared into the night. Emma sat down, shaking. He's playing with us again. He wants us scared. Isabel nodded. Yes, he wants control, but he's losing it. That's why he's making mistakes. Ethan came out of his room, rubbing his eyes. What's happening, Mom? She forced a calm smile. Nothing, sweetheart. Go back to bed. But Ethan didn't move. He looked at her with worried eyes. It's him again, isn't it? Emma sighed. Yes, but the police are here. We're safe. He didn't look convinced. Mom, he won't stop. Darren never stops. Isabel looked at him carefully. You knew him better than we did, Ethan. Tell me something. Why did he hate your father so much? Ethan hesitated. He sat down thinking. Dad and Darren were partners in a real estate business years ago. They worked together for almost 10 years. But then something went wrong. A deal with a company overseas. A lot of money disappeared. Dad blamed Darren. Darren blamed Dad. That's when Dad started drinking. After that, he left. Emma listened, shocked. Your father never told me any of this. Ethan nodded. I only found out when Darren contacted me online. He said he could help me fix what my father broke. He told me Dad took money that wasn't his and ran. I didn't believe him at first. But then he showed me bank statements. It looked real. I thought if I helped him, we could clear Dad's name and maybe get the money back. Emma's chest felt tight. But it was a trap. Yes, Ethan's voice cracked. When I realized it, I tried to stop. But they said it was too late, that I was already part of it. Isabel folded her arms. So this was never just about you or the vacation. Darren's been holding a grudge for years. He wanted revenge against your father, and now he's using you both to get it. Emma whispered, But why target me? I had nothing to do with any of this. Sabel gave her a long look. Because you're the only one left who matters to him. Hurting you hurts your son. And that's what he wants. The realization hit Emma like a wave. Darren wasn't just trying to get money. He was trying to destroy what was left of her family. The next day, Isabel received an update from her tech team. They had cracked part of the data from Darren's laptop. It contained dozens of documents, fake contracts, offshore account details, and one shocking file. A list of names. Who are these people? Emma asked as Isabel showed her the screen. Investors, Isabel replied. Victims, maybe. Darren tricked them all into sending money for fake projects. Your husband's name is here too, and his signature. Emma's stomach twisted. You mean my husband was part of this? Isabel's voice was careful. Maybe not willingly. Darren could have forged it. But there's more. She opened another file, a scanned letter dated 3 years ago. It was from Darren to Emma's husband. You think you can walk away after what you did? I'll make sure your family pays for every dollar you stole. Emma stared at the letter, her mind spinning. My husband. He left us because of this. Ethan whispered. Dad didn't just leave, did he? He was hiding. Isabel nodded slowly. That could be true. He may still be out there running from Darren or worse. Emma pressed a hand to her mouth, tears filling her eyes. All these years. I thought he abandoned us. I thought it was my fault. Ethan touched her shoulder gently. Mom, maybe we can still find him? But Isabel looked uncertain. If Darren finds him first, it'll be too late. That evening, Emma walked alone in the small courtyard of the police compound. The sun was setting, the sky turning a soft orange. The air smelled of rain and earth. For a moment, she closed her eyes, trying to remember better days. The beach vacations. The laughter, the sound of Ethan's small voice calling her from the water. Her heart ached. So much had been lost. Money, peace, trust. And yet, somehow, she felt stronger now. Fear had burned her, but it had also made her braver. Suddenly, she heard a faint click, like metal scraping metal. She froze. The sound came from behind the storage shed near the fence. She turned slowly. Who's there? She called no answer. She took a few steps closer, her heartbeat quickening. Another sound footsteps, this time soft and careful. Show yourself, she said louder, fear rising in her voice. A figure stepped out from behind the shed. A man, tall, bearded, his clothes dirty, his face pale. Emma's breath caught. For a moment, she thought it was Darren. But then the man spoke, his voice weak, trembling. Emma. She froze completely. Her heart skipped a beat. That voice, she hadn't heard it in years, Daniel. She whispered, it was her husband. He looked older, thinner, haunted. His eyes were full of pain. I didn't know where else to go, he said quietly. I've been running for so long. They're everywhere. Emma stepped closer, tears filling her eyes. Where have you been? All these years, why didn't you come back? He shook his head, his face full of regret. Because I thought if I stayed away, you and Ethan would be safe. Darren. He wanted me dead. I didn't know he'd come after you." Before Emma could reply, Isabel and two officers rushed into the courtyard, guns drawn. "Freeze!" Daniel raised his hands quickly. "Don't shoot. I'm not here to hurt anyone." Emma ran between them. "No, he's my husband." Isabel lowered her weapon slightly, but kept her eyes on him. "Then he has a lot of explaining to do." Inside, Daniel told them everything. He had been Darren's business partner. Years ago, they invested in a real estate deal overseas. Darren secretly used fake documents to steal investor money. When Daniel found out, he confronted him, but Darren framed him instead. The police came after Daniel, and he had to run. He had been hiding ever since, moving from country to country. "Trying to find proof of his innocence? Then why didn't you come to the police?" Isabel asked. "I tried," Daniel said. "But every time I got close, Darren's men found me. He had people everywhere." Emma listened, tears in her eyes. "All this time, I thought you abandoned us." Daniel reached out, his voice breaking. "I never stopped thinking about you. I followed your life from a distance. When I heard about the vacation, I knew it was a trap. I tried to reach you, but they were already watching." Ethan spoke softly. "Dad, I tried to fix it. I made it worse." Daniel turned to him and smiled sadly. "You tried to help, son. That's all that matters." The family held each other for the first time in years. For a moment, everything felt right again. But Isabel's voice broke the silence. "We have a problem," she said, holding up her phone. "Darren knows he's here." Emma's heart stopped. "What?" Isabel showed them the message that had just come through on her secure line. "Nice family reunion. Enjoy it while it lasts." Emma's hands went cold. She looked at Daniel, then Ethan, then Isabel outside. The lights of the compound flickered once, twice, then went dark, and from somewhere beyond the fence a voice echoed through the night. "Time's up." Darkness swallowed the police compound in an instant. The sudden silence was deafening. The hum of electricity, the faint buzz of lights, all gone. For a few seconds, no one moved. Emma stood frozen beside Ethan, her breath shallow. The faint light of the moon shone through the window, casting long, pale shadows on the walls. Somewhere outside, the rain had stopped. The air felt heavy, too still, too quiet. Then Isabel's voice broke the silence. "Everyone, stay calm. Backup power should come on soon." She turned to one of the officers. "Check the generator now." Two officers rushed out with flashlights. The rest stayed close, their hands on their guns, eyes scanning every shadow. Daniel stood by the window, peering into the dark yard. "He's here," he whispered. "He cut the power on purpose." Emma's heart pounded. What does he want? Daniel's voice was cold. "Me." Isabel looked at him sharply. "No. He wants to destroy you, all of you. He won't stop at revenge." Ethan grabbed his mother's hand. His voice was shaking. "Mom, I'm scared." She held him close. "It's okay, baby. I've got you." But her own voice trembled. Outside, a flash of light, lightning illuminated the compound for a split second. In that brief glow, Emma saw movement near the fence. A shadow, a man. Then darkness again. "Isabel." She gasped. "There's someone out there." The detective moved to the window, flashlight in hand, but saw nothing. "He's toying with us," she muttered. "He wants us to panic." A second later, a loud bang echoed through the compound. Metal clanged. Glass shattered. Everyone ducked. "He's inside." One officer shouted. Chaos erupted. Officers moved quickly, forming a line near the hallway. Isabel shouted orders, her gun drawn. Emma and Ethan were pushed behind a heavy desk. Daniel crouched beside them, his eyes sharp, his hands clenched into fists. Footsteps echoed in the corridor, slow, confident. Then a voice, calm and chilling. "Hello, Daniel. It's been a long time." Emma's blood ran cold. Darren. Isabel pointed her gun toward the sound. "Drop your weapon and step into the light," she shouted. A laugh answered her. Still giving orders, detective? You're brave, but not smart enough. Suddenly, a flash gunfire. Bullets hit the wall above Emma's head. She screamed and pulled Ethan closer. Officers returned fire, shouting. The sound filled the entire building, sharp and terrifying. Get them out, Isabel yelled. Go to the basement. Daniel grabbed Emma's arm. Come on. They ran down the narrow hallway, ducking as bullets echoed behind them. The emergency lights flickered weakly, casting red glows on the walls. Their footsteps pounded against the concrete floor. Ethan stumbled once, but Emma pulled him up, whispering, Keep going. At the end of the hall was a heavy door. Daniel pushed it open and they slipped inside. It was the generator room, small, filled with pipes and the smell of fuel. The noise of the fight upstairs faded slightly. Ethan was crying quietly. Mom, what if he finds us? Emma hugged him tightly. He won't. We're going to be okay. Daniel looked at the control panel. If I can restart the generator, maybe the lights will come back on. That'll give the police an advantage. He moved quickly, pulling levers and checking wires. Sparks flickered. The machine hummed faintly, then went dead again. Emma swallowed hard. Can you fix it? Daniel wiped sweat from his forehead. I'll try. But he must have cut the main line outside. Suddenly, a noise. A faint creak came from the hallway. Emma froze. The sound grew louder. Footsteps. Slow, careful, deliberate. Ethan's eyes widened. He's here. Daniel signaled for them to stay quiet. He grabbed a metal pipe from the floor, holding it tight. Emma pulled Ethan behind a large container. Her heart raced so fast it hurt. The door handle turned slowly, dot creak. The door opened just an inch. A sliver of light cut through the darkness. Then silence. Daniel raised the pipe, his muscles tense. A hand pushed the door wider. A shadow entered, tall, moving slowly. Daniel. The voice was calm, almost casual. You can't hide forever. Daniel stepped forward. It's over, Darren. The police are here. You'll never get away with this. Darren laughed softly. You still don't get it, do you? It was never about getting away. It was about making you feel what I felt, losing everything. Took another step forward. The faint light revealed his face, cold eyes scar across his cheek, the same cruel smile Emma had seen before. You took my life from me, Darren said. My business, my name, my future. Now I'm taking yours. Daniel swung the pipe. Darren dodged easily, pushing him against the wall. The two men struggled, grunting, metal clanging against concrete. Emma covered Ethan's ears as the fight grew louder. Stop it, she screamed. Please stop. Darren shoved Daniel to the ground. He pulled out a gun, pointing it directly at him. You think you can just erase what you did? Daniel coughed, blood on his lip. You ruined yourself, Darren. Your greed did this. Darren's hand shook slightly, his eyes full of rage. No, you did this. Emma couldn't watch. She closed her eyes, holding Ethan tightly. Then a loud sound. A gunshot. Silence. When Emma opened her eyes, Darren was standing still, his face pale. Slowly, he looked down, a red stain spreading across his shirt. Behind him stood Isabel, gun in hand, her expression fierce and steady. It's over, Isabel said. Darren stumbled backward, collapsing to the ground. The gun slipped from his hand and clattered on the floor. He tried to speak, but only a faint whisper came out. You don't understand. Then his eyes went still. Emma stood frozen, unable to move or speak. Daniel slowly got to his feet, breathing hard. Ethan clung to his mother, shaking. Isabel lowered her weapon. It's done, she said softly. He's gone. For a moment, no one spoke. The room was filled only with the sound of distant thunder. Then Daniel turned to Emma, his voice breaking. It's over, Em. It's finally over. Emma wanted to believe him. She really did. But something about Darren's last words echoed in her mind. You don't understand. What did he mean? Hours later, the police compound was back under control. The lights were restored and paramedics moved through the building, checking everyone. Isabel sat with her team, giving reports. Emma, Ethan, and Daniel sat together in a quiet corner. Ethan's head rested on his mother's shoulder. Daniel held her hand gently. For the first time in years, they were a family again. Broken, but together. But Emma couldn't shake the unease in her chest. Darren was dead, yet his words still haunted her. She looked around the room, the officers, the evidence bags, the flashing lights. Something still felt unfinished. Isabel approached them. "You should all get some rest," she said. "Tomorrow, we'll move you to a safe location while we finalize the investigation." Emma nodded weakly. "Thank you for everything." Isabel gave a small smile. "You were brave, Mrs. Parker. Most people wouldn't have survived what you did." But as Isabel walked away, Emma noticed something. A small black flash drive in Isabel's hand. Her heart skipped. "Wait," she called. "Where did you get that?" Isabel turned slightly, her expression unreadable. "From Darren's pocket," she said calmly. "We'll examine it later." Emma frowned. "But that looks like the same one Ethan gave you earlier." Isabel paused. "Does it?" For a brief moment, their eyes met. Something cold ran through Emma's spine. Isabel smiled faintly, too faintly. Then she slipped the drive into her coat pocket and walked away. Emma's heart began to race again. She didn't know why, but something about that moment felt wrong. Deep down, she knew Darren might be dead. But the truth was far from over. The night after Darren's death felt too quiet, too calm to be real. The storm had passed, but the smell of wet earth and gunpowder still lingered around the police compound. Inside, the fluorescent lights buzzed softly. Officers spoke in low tones, cleaning up the chaos that had nearly destroyed them all. Emma sat in a small room, her hands wrapped around a cup of cold tea she hadn't touched. Ethan slept on a couch nearby, his small face pale and tired. Daniel stood near the door, talking quietly with one of the officers. But Emma's eyes weren't on them. They were fixed on Isabel, the detective sitting across the hall, typing rapidly on her laptop. That same black flash drive plugged into its side. Emma couldn't look away. The faint blue light blinking from the drive felt like it was pulsing in time with her heart. Something about it didn't feel right. Ethan had given that drive to Isabel earlier, and now Isabel claimed she found it in Darren's pocket. Both couldn't be true. Emma's mind replayed the memory again and again. Ethan pulling the small drive from his backpack, his shaky voice saying, "He told me to hide this, Mom." And then Isabel's calm tone when she took it. "We'll keep this safe." So how did she have another one now? Her thoughts were interrupted when Daniel walked in. "We can leave soon," he said quietly. "They'll move us to a safe house for a few days. Isabel wants us out of the city until the investigation is closed." Emma nodded slowly, her eyes still on Isabel. "Daniel, do you trust her?" He frowned. "Of course. She saved our lives tonight." "Yes, she did," Emma whispered. "But something's wrong." Daniel sighed, rubbing his forehead. "Emma, we're all exhausted. You're reading too much into things." Maybe he was right. Maybe her mind was just tired, searching for danger where there wasn't any. Still, she couldn't shake the unease. A few minutes later, Isabel approached them. Her usual calm, professional expression was back. "The car is ready. We'll escort you to the safe house now." Daniel nodded. "Thank you, Detective." Isabel gave a faint smile. "You're welcome. You've all been through a lot, but it's over now. You can rest." Emma wanted to believe that. She really did. Outside, the night was cold and damp. The streetlights reflected off puddles on the road. 2 police cars led the way, and Isabel drove the black SUV carrying Emma, Daniel, and Ethan. The city lights faded as they moved farther out into the countryside, where tall trees lined the empty roads. Ethan slept again in the back seat, his head on Emma's lap. Daniel stared out the window, lost in thought. Emma, though, watched Isabel. Her hands on the steering wheel were steady, her eyes fixed ahead. The dashboard clock glowed faintly to 47 a.m. After a while, Emma spoke softly. Detective, can I ask something? Of course, Isabel said without looking away from the road. That flash drive you found. What's on it? Isabel's eyes flicked briefly to the mirror. We're not sure yet. It seems encrypted. Could be financial data, maybe the records of the money Darren took. Emma nodded slowly. Ethan said Darren told him to hide it. Maybe it has proof of something, maybe Isabel said. Her voice was calm to calm. We'll know soon. The rest of the drive was silent. Only the sound of tires on wet gravel filled the air. After an hour, they reached a small cabin near the edge of a forest. It looked old but sturdy. A single porch light flickered and the faint sound of crickets filled the night. Isabel parked the car and turned off the engine. This will be your safe house, she said. There's food inside, clean rooms, and a landline. Don't go outside without an escort. I'll check in tomorrow. Daniel shook her hand. Thank you again for everything. Isabel nodded. Get some rest. You've earned it. Emma watched as Isabel's car disappeared down the dirt road, its red taillights fading into the darkness. Only then did she exhale. Inside, the cabin was warm and quiet. The walls were made of old pine wood, and the air smelled faintly of smoke from a fireplace that had been lit earlier. There were 3 rooms, 1 small kitchen, a main living area, and 2 bedrooms. Daniel quickly checked the place. All clear, he said. We'll be safe here. But Emma wasn't so sure. She couldn't sleep. She sat near the window, staring out into the dark forest. Every rustle of leaves made her jump. Her mind kept replaying Isabel's calm face, that flash drive, and Darren's final words. You don't understand. What didn't she understand? At around 4 a.m., when the world was silent and still, Emma heard a faint sound, a beep, very soft, mechanical. Coming from the corner of the room, she turned her head slowly. It was Ethan's backpack, the same one that had held the flash drive. Her heart began to race. She unzipped it carefully. Inside was his notebook, a few toys, and at the very bottom, another flash drive. Her hands trembled. Oh my God, she whispered. It looked identical to the one Isabel had taken. Same shape, same color, same little scratch near the edge. That meant Isabel lied. There were 2 drives, and if Isabel had the second one, the one she claimed was from Darren's pocket, then she had switched it. But why? Emma woke Daniel, shaking his shoulder. Daniel, wake up, look. He blinked, confused. What is it? She held up the flash drive. This was still in Ethan's bag. Daniel frowned. That's impossible. Isabel said she already had it. Exactly, Emma said. Which means she didn't tell us the truth. Daniel looked at the small device in her hand, his expression darkening. So, what's on it? I don't know, Emma said. But we need to find out. They turned on the small cabin laptop, an old one left on the desk. Emma plugged the flash drive in. The screen flickered, and a folder appeared. It had only 1 file. A video. The file name read truth_0701.mp. For Emma clicked it. The video began with static. Then an image came into focus, a man sitting at a table. Darren, his face looked tired, angry, desperate. He leaned forward toward the camera. If you're watching this, he said, it means I'm dead. And if I'm dead, then someone made sure of it. Emma's breath caught. This isn't about the money, Darren continued. It's about what they did. Daniel was just the bait. The real person behind all this is someone you already trust. The screen glitched again. Darren's face blurred for a moment. I kept everything, all the documents, the bank logs, the proof. It's all on this drive. Don't trust the video cut off suddenly. Emma stared at the blank screen. Don't trust who? She whispered. Daniel rubbed his temples. It could be anyone. A partner, an investor. But deep down, Emma already knew who Darren meant. Someone she trusted. Someone who had lied. Someone who had that same flash drive in her pocket, Isabel, before Emma could speak. The landline phone on the wall rang, shrill, sudden, slicing through the silence. Daniel jumped. Who could that be? Emma hesitated, then slowly lifted the receiver. Hello. A pause. Then a familiar voice, calm and low, came through the line. "You shouldn't have watched that video, Emma." Her blood ran cold. "Isabel?" There was silence for a second. Then Isabel's voice again, softer this time. "I told you to rest. Now you've made things complicated." The line went dead. Emma stood frozen, the phone still in her hand. Daniel's eyes widened. "What did she say?" Emma turned slowly toward him. Her voice was barely a whisper. "She knows we watched it." Outside, the wind began to howl again, shaking the trees. A distant engine roared, growing louder. Ethan stirred in his sleep as headlights flickered through the window. Daniel rushed to the door, peering out. His face went pale. "Emma, she's coming." The roar of the approaching engine grew louder, echoing through the forest. The flickering headlights painted wild patterns on the cabin walls. Emma's hands shook as she pulled Ethan closer. Daniel peeked through the small window, his breath fogging the glass. "It's her," he whispered. "She's alone." "I think—" Emma's heart pounded in her chest. "What does she want?" "She said she'd come tomorrow." Daniel stepped back from the window, his jaw tight. "She knows we saw the video. That's why she's here." The car stopped outside. The headlights shut off, leaving the forest swallowed in black. For a long moment, there was no movement, no sound, just the wind brushing through the trees. Then came the sound of footsteps, crunching on gravel, slow, steady. Emma's pulse raced faster. The door handle rattled once. Then again. "Stay behind me," Daniel whispered. Grabbing a metal poker from the fireplace, the door creaked open slowly, and the beam of a flashlight swept across the room. Isabel stepped inside, her gun drawn, her face calm but cold. "Put that down, Daniel," she said quietly. "I'm not here to hurt you." Daniel didn't move. "Then why come in the middle of the night with a gun?" Isabel lowered the weapon slightly. "Because I know what you watched. And you don't understand what's really going on." Emma stepped forward. "Then explain it. Why did you lie about the flash drive?" Isabel sighed and closed the door behind her. The sound of the lock clicking made Emma's stomach twist, because Isabel said softly, "There was more than one copy. Darren made several. I had to make sure they didn't end up in the wrong hands." Daniel frowned. "Whose hands?" Isabel looked at him for a long moment before replying. "The people who funded Darren. He wasn't working alone." Kama's voice trembled. "Then why didn't you just tell us?" "Because I couldn't trust anyone, not even you." Ethan stirred on the couch, half awake. "Mom?" He mumbled that. Emma rushed to him, whispering, "It's okay, baby. Stay down." Isabel's eyes softened for a moment when she looked at Ethan. "He's a brave kid," she said quietly. "I'm sorry he got pulled into this." Daniel took a step forward. "What do you mean, funded Darren?" "You said he was just a thief, a scammer." Isabel shook her head. "No, Darren was part of a bigger operation. People laundering millions through fake investments. He tried to expose them, but when he got caught, they turned on him. He blamed you, Daniel, because your name was tied to the company." Daniel's face went pale. "So you're saying he wasn't lying about the others?" "No," Isabel said. "But he didn't know who was really behind it either." Emma stared at her. "Then who?" Isabel hesitated. "That's what I've been trying to find out." The tension in the room grew thick. The only sound was the crackle of the dying fire. Emma could feel that Isabel wasn't telling them everything. Her eyes, usually so confident, looked tired now, almost guilty. "Detective," Emma said slowly, "why were you really investigating this case?" Isabel's lips parted, but before she could answer, a loud crash came from outside. The window shattered as something heavy hit the wall. A flashbang. The explosion of light and sound threw everyone to the floor. Ethan screamed. Daniel covered Emma's head as shards of glass rained down. The room filled with white smoke. "Get down!" Isabel shouted, reaching for her gun. Another blast. The door flew open. Dark figures in black masks rushed in, shouting commands. "Down! Everyone down!" Emma's ears rang. She couldn't see clearly through the haze. She reached blindly for Ethan, feeling his small hand clutch hers tightly. Daniel crawled beside them, coughing. Isabel fired once, twice, but was overpowered. One of the masked men hit her arm, and her gun clattered to the floor. Another grabbed Daniel, forcing him against the wall. Emma screamed, "Leave him alone!" A tall man stepped forward through the smoke. His voice was calm, smooth, terrifyingly familiar. "I told you this wasn't over, Emma." Her blood turned cold. It was Darren's voice. She looked up, her eyes wide. Through the haze, she saw him alive. A thin cut on his cheek, a bulletproof vest under his shirt. He smirked when he saw her expression, surprised. He said, "You didn't think it would be that easy, did you?" Isabel's face went white. "That's impossible. I shot you." Darren laughed darkly. "You missed the vest. I planned everything, even my death." Emma's hands trembled. "Why, Darren? Why drag us through this again?" "Because," he said, stepping closer, "you have something that belongs to me." He turned to one of his men. "Get the boy's bag." "No." Emma screamed, clutching Ethan tightly. The man grabbed the backpack from the couch and ripped it open. The flash drive tumbled out onto the floor. Darren bent down and picked it up, smiling. "There it is," he said softly. "The truth everyone's been chasing." Isabel's voice shook with anger. "What's on it, Darren? What are you hiding?" Darren looked at her, his smile fading. "Something that can destroy people like you." He motioned for his men to tie Daniel's hands. "We're leaving." Emma stepped forward. "You can't take him, please." Darren paused, his expression softening slightly. "I never wanted to hurt you, Emma. You were just in the wrong place at the wrong time. But I can't stop now." Before Emma could speak, Isabel lunged forward, tackling one of the men. A struggle broke out. Gunshots echoed again. Daniel broke free from his ropes, tackling another man. Chaos filled the cabin once more. Emma ducked behind the table with Ethan, covering his ears as bullets splintered the walls. Darren grabbed the flash drive and ran for the door. Isabel shouted, "Stop him," and fired again, this time hitting his shoulder. Darren stumbled but didn't fall. He crashed through the door and vanished into the trees. His men following him into the night, silence returned, broken only by the sound of rain beginning again outside. Emma stood trembling, her heart racing. Isabel clutched her wounded arm, breathing heavily. Daniel knelt beside her, checking the injury. "He's getting away," he said. "I know," Isabel hissed, "but he won't get far. He's bleeding." Emma looked toward the door, where the darkness swallowed the forest. The thought of Darren still out there alive, desperate, dangerous, made her knees weak. "We have to go after him," she said. Isabel shook her head. "It's too risky now. He'll try to reach the airstrip by morning. That's where he'll run." Daniel clenched his fists. "Then we stop him before he does." For a moment, none of them spoke. The only light came from the flickering fire. Emma picked up the landline. Phone again, but the line was dead. Cut dot, she turned to Isabel. "They planned this. They knew we were here." Isabel nodded grimly. "Someone leaked our location. Someone inside the department." Emma felt her stomach twist. "So it's not over." Isabel met her eyes. "Not yet, but I think I finally know who's behind all this." Daniel frowned. "Who?" Isabel hesitated, then whispered, "Someone higher up. Someone with power. Someone who wanted Darren silenced." Before she could say more, Ethan's small voice came from the corner. "Mom, the cabin's burning." Emma turned. Flames licked the curtains near the window. One of the flashbangs had set the fabric on fire. Within seconds, smoke began filling the room again. Daniel grabbed Ethan in his arms. "We need to move." Isabel covered the flames with a blanket, but they were spreading fast. The wood walls crackled and popped as heat filled the air. Emma coughed, her eyes stinging. "Isabel, this way." They rushed out into the rain, stumbling through mud and ashes as the cabin behind them began to burn. The orange glow lit up the forest. Emma turned one last time to see the cabin collapse in flames. The place that was supposed to protect them, now disappearing into smoke. Daniel held her hand tightly. We have to keep going. She nodded weakly. Her mind was spinning. Darren was alive. The flash drive was gone. And Isabel knew something she hadn't told them yet. They walked through the trees, soaked and shaking. In the distance, a faint sound, the hum of an engine, echoed through the fog. Emma stopped. Do you hear that? Isabel turned her head, listening carefully. Yes, she said. That's him. She pointed through the trees toward a faint glow of headlights far away. That's where he's going, the airstrip. Daniel's jaw tightened. Then let's finish this. The rain poured harder. The forest grew darker. And as they began moving toward the sound, Emma whispered under her breath, barely audible through the storm, please, let this end tonight. But deep down, she already knew. The night was far from over. Rain poured harder as Emma, Daniel, and Isabel stumbled through the muddy forest. The glow of the burning cabin faded behind them, leaving only darkness and the sound of their footsteps. Ahead, through the trees, a faint light flickered white, rhythmic and distant. Isabel pointed toward it. That's the airstrip, she said. He'll try to take off before sunrise. Daniel tightened his grip on Ethan's hand. Then we can't let him get there. They moved quickly, guided by the dim light of Isabel's flashlight. The path was slippery, and the smell of smoke clung to their clothes. Emma's heart pounded, but she kept going. Every step brought her closer to the man who had destroyed everything, and to the truth she still didn't understand. When they reached the edge of the trees, the sight ahead made Emma gasp. A small private jet stood on the runway, its engines humming softly. A few men were loading cases into the cargo hold. And near the plane, standing in the rain with blood on his shoulder and the flash drive in his hand, Darren. Isabel crouched behind a stack of barrels. We can't go straight in, she whispered. There are at least 4 armed men. Daniel's jaw clenched. We don't have time for plans. If he gets on that plane, it's over. Emma looked at Ethan, who was shivering and scared but silent. Stay with me, okay? She whispered. He nodded. They crept closer through the shadows, the sound of rain masking their movements. The air smelled like jet fuel and wet asphalt. Then, over the noise, Darren's voice cut through the storm. We leave in 5 minutes. I don't care about the weather. His men moved faster, their boots splashing through puddles. Darren opened a briefcase, checking something inside, stacks of cash, files, passports. Then he slipped the flash drive into his jacket pocket. Isabel leaned toward Emma. That drive, it's the evidence. It's everything. We need it, Tanya whispered. I'll draw them away. You grab the drive. Emma grabbed his arm. Now, Daniel, it's too dangerous. He looked at her, his eyes soft but firm. I caused this mess years ago. Let me fix it. Before she could stop him, Daniel stood and shouted, Darren! Everyone turned. Darren froze when he saw him. Well, Darren said, smiling bitterly, you just don't know when to quit. Daniel stepped forward, hands raised. It's over. You can't run forever. Darren laughed. Oh, Daniel, I'm not running. I'm escaping. He nodded to his men. Get him. The armed guards moved toward Daniel. Isabel opened fire first, hitting one of them in the leg. Chaos erupted. Bullets whizzed through the air. Emma ducked behind a fuel crate, pulling Ethan close. Stay down, she cried. Daniel tackled one of the men to the ground, wrestling for the gun. The rain turned the fight into a blur of mud and motion. Isabel moved with sharp precision, covering them in the confusion. Darren started running toward the plane stairs. Emma saw him. Without thinking, she sprinted after him. Her shoes slipped on the wet ground, her hair sticking to her face, but she didn't stop. Darren! She screamed. He turned, startled, and she slammed into him with all her strength. Both fell hard onto the wet concrete. The flash drive flew out of his pocket, sliding across the runway. Darren grabbed her wrist, his eyes wild. You don't know what's on that drive. He shouted. You think I'm the villain, but that thing, it'll destroy lives. Emma struggled against his grip. It already destroyed mine. He hesitated just for a moment, and she used that second to push him away. Isabel appeared out of the rain, gun aimed directly at him. "It's over, Darren. Drop it." But Darren didn't move. His eyes flicked between Isabel and the flash drive lying near the edge of the runway. "You don't understand, detective," he said, voice trembling. "That drive doesn't expose me. It exposes your people." Isabel's eyes narrowed. "What are you talking about?" "The people you work for," Darren said. "The ones who built the operation. You think you're cleaning up corruption, but you're protecting it." Isabel hesitated. "You're lying." Darren shook his head. "Am I? Check your own files. You'll see the names." The moment of hesitation cost her. Darren lunged for the flash drive, but Daniel appeared behind him, tackling him again. The two men struggled near the edge of the runway. Rain and blood mixing beneath them. A shot rang out. Both men froze. Daniel gasped, not in pain, but in shock. The bullet had missed him and struck Darren in the chest. Darren staggered backward, clutching his wound. The flash drive fell from his hand. He looked at Emma one last time, his face pale. "I tried to warn you," he whispered. Then he fell. Silence. Only the rain kept falling, washing away the blood and smoke. Daniel dropped to his knees, breathing heavily. Isabel lowered her weapon, her hands shaking. "He left me no choice," she said quietly. Emma knelt beside Darren's body, staring at him. For so long, she had hated him for lying, for stealing, for threatening her family. But in that moment, she didn't see a monster. She saw a broken man who had made terrible choices and paid the price. She picked up the flash drive, staring at it. It felt small, almost meaningless. Yet inside it was the truth that had cost so many lives. Isabel walked closer. "We'll need to hand that in," she said softly. "The department will take it from here." Emma looked at her, and something in Isabel's voice made her pause. "The department," she repeated slowly. Isabel nodded. "Yes, it's the only way to end this." Emma noticed something in her eyes, the same unease she'd seen before: doubt, fear, guilt. She realized then what Darren had meant. The corruption wasn't just with Darren. It was higher, deeper, hidden behind badges and titles. Emma closed her hand around the drive. "No," she said quietly. "Not this time." Isabel frowned. "Emma, you'll get your copy," Emma said, her voice steady. "But this one stays with me until I know it's safe." For a long moment they stared at each other. Rain dripped from their faces. Then Isabel nodded slowly. "Be careful who you trust," she said. Emma didn't answer. Hours later, the police arrived. The storm had ended and dawn was breaking, a pale light spreading across the wet runway. Darren's body was taken away. Daniel's wounds were treated. Ethan sat wrapped in a blanket, watching the sunrise with tired eyes. Emma stood nearby, holding the flash drive tightly in her pocket. Daniel came to her side. "It's finally over," he said softly. She looked at him, then at their son. "I hope so." He reached for her hand. "We'll rebuild. Maybe not the same life we had, but something better." Emma nodded, tears mixing with the rain still clinging to her skin. Maybe losing everything was what we needed to see what really matters. Ethan looked up at them. "Are we going home now?" Emma smiled gently. "Yes, sweetheart. We're going home." They stood together, watching the sun rise over the quiet airfield. The world felt new, fragile, but full of promise. For the first time in years, Emma felt peace, not because the danger was gone, but because she finally understood sometimes losing money, dreams, or even trust isn't the end. Sometimes it's how you start over, weeks later. Emma sat by her window at home watching the morning light spill across the kitchen. Ethan laughed in the living room, playing with his toys. Daniel was outside, fixing the fence. The nightmare felt far away now, like a story from another life. But on the table beside her sat a small envelope. Inside it, a flash drive. The same one that had changed everything. She hadn't given it to the police. She'd made copies and stored them safely. Because somewhere deep down she knew Darren was right. The truth inside that drive was bigger than him, bigger than her. Maybe one day she would tell the world. But for now, she just whispered to herself, "We're free." Outside, a breeze rustled the trees. Sunlight touched her face, warm and calm. Emma smiled, closed her eyes, and breathed deeply. Her life wasn't perfect, but it was hers again, and that was enough. If you enjoyed this story, please like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. Your support helps us bring more true life-inspired stories filled with emotions, suspense, and heart.